Hey everybody, welcome back to Fantasy Sports Review. I'm Phil Hargis. Thanks again for joining us here on Fantasy Sports Review. It's good to see you guys again. You know, it's so exciting. We're through 2 weeks of the preseason right now. We're seeing a lot of things happening. We're seeing players emerge. We're seeing players that are starting to disappoint and everything. We're going to get to that in just a minute here. We're as promised, we're going to go back and revisit the running back strength of schedules. We didn't have enough time to get to all that last week because we were busy breaking it down, the other drafts, and telling you like what are some of the trends that we're seeing out there with the fantasy drafts. Like by now, almost everybody out there watching is like probably done their first fantasy football draft. I hadn't signed up for any of the drafts yet. I mean, mine were close to the start of the season. I just couldn't wait to get started. So last weekend, I was sitting around. I've been going through all this fantasy stuff, doing all these shows. I was like, I've got to get into a draft. So I went ahead and signed up for one on RT Sports, drafted through the Football Guys satellite contest, got a team. So we're going to break that down later tonight on the show. It's very exciting. We'll tell you about the scoring format for that and tell you how all that draft went, who some of the sleeper guys are being sort of like overvalued in this draft and everything, and maybe some of the guys were sliding a little bit further down in these earlier drafts. You can also see the effects of some of these injuries and these holdouts that were affecting players' draft positions. They're very important for consideration in your drafts that are coming up this weekend and over the upcoming weeks. We have more preseason games going on this weekend. It's going to be pretty much the most telling weekend is week 3 in the preseason. We all know this. The starters usually play the first half, sometimes into the third quarter, just to see what kind of rapport and everything and success they have with what's probably going to be the first team starting lineups here come for NFL Week 1 and on September 5th. We're getting ready to bring you those predictions next week on the show. But let me go ahead and introduce Robbie. Robbie's been patiently standing by here. I don't think I've ever heard Robbie so quiet, man. Robbie, good to see you again, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to dive into it because, like you said, week 3, the preseason is kind of fitting. They play most of their starters through three quarters at least. And, you've kind of hoped to stay away from all the injuries. We saw one injury already this week with Michael Vick, bruised ribs. So that could be a telling sign of their season to come. But, again, I would kind of stay away from that guy this season.
Yeah, it's just one guy that's very injury prone. He's is in the final year of his contract, I believe, so he's going to have to put out some numbers. Otherwise, he could become a thing of the past there. Which seems like he just signed that big multi-million-dollar contract there not too long ago, but it's coming up, man. So it's time for him to put up or shut up, and he's going to need to have some success because a lot of people there in Philadelphia have very high expectations for that team.
Yeah, you're right. So
let's get into it. Robbie, last week we touched on the strength of schedule for the quarterbacks. We can go back and revisit that show if you guys missed it last week. It is up on YouTube. It's up on fantasyreview.com. You can go back and look at that. We talk about in great detail about who some of the better teams' matchups are. At the top of the list are guys like Drew Brees and Matt Ryan and Josh Freeman. A lot of those NFC South teams have really good favorable schedules this year. And some of the other guys that are towards the bottom of the list are guys maybe like a Ryan Fitzpatrick or a Joe Flacco, or maybe even Andy Dalton, who you're really high on after like having a pretty good rookie season. He's definitely setting up for a sophomore slump. But anyway, go back and look at the last episode, number 242, on the YouTube channel for Fantasy Sports Review, and you'll see all that information there. And that information will never change for your drafts going forward. You definitely want to go back there and check it out. Let's get into the strength of the schedule running backs here. Robbie, it's first the same deal. The NFC South has some pretty easy schedules here. And right at the top of the list there, the Falcons, maybe a guy like Jamal Charles who's sliding some drafts because of his injuries, but has some favorable matchups, so maybe it's worth taking a chance on that guy.
Yeah, sure. It looks like that. And you also saw in the strength schedule last week that the Falcons had the number 2 slot. So if you're drafting Atlanta Falcons players, you have some great matchups to look at, especially week 1 going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. I know that they returned some starters, especially Eric Berry, who's coming off that torn ACL last season at safety. Might be able to take advantage of that secondary a little bit. So that's a key matchup to look forward to in all fantasy regards. I know we'll probably tell everyone out there to start all Falcons receivers and players, especially Tony Gonzalez too. But yeah, you look at that, and then you also look at Kansas City. Jamal Charles looking for that bounce back. He had that torn ACL last season. Now he's looking to prove, especially with Peyton Hillis in the backfield. He doesn't want all of his carries to be taken over by this guy. So maybe a guy like Jamal Charles in the 3rd round would be a great value pick. But yeah, you look at the top 2 right there, and they go against each other week 1. So it's it's kind of fitting if you have Jamal Charles or Michael Turner on your team to go wild.
That could end up being a pretty serious ground battle there too. I mean, it's really hard to tell because it sets up pretty well for Atlanta on both passing and running the game there. And I even like this. I'm not really a huge Ryan Matthews fan, which is really well documented over the last couple of years in the show. You know that probably as well as anybody. But I'm starting to get the guy. He's just sliding so far in these drafts, late into the 2nd and early into the 3rd rounds. I mean, this is a guy. If he's falling that hard in your drafts, I think he's worth. So what, you lose a couple games out of him, but if he's going to be there for weeks 3 all the way through the playoffs, and he's falling that far in the drafts, and his rushing schedule is really this easy,
yeah.
I mean, I think you can't ignore this guy because he's got so much potential. Yeah, he might get hurt again, and this pick will end up being a waste. But if you're picking up in the third round as your second running back, maybe it's not so bad.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ryan Matthews again he's kind of disappointed most fantasy owners the past couple seasons, but the rookie out of Fresno State looks like he might bounce back this season. Then he had a great off-season workout, and then all of a sudden, week 1 in the preseason, breaks his collarbone. He's out 4 to 6 weeks, so he'll be out for a couple weeks to start the season. But not a huge blow, especially if you have a guy that you can target in the first or 2 rounds, and draft him in the 3rd or 4th round. That's kind of good value right there too. And then you look at they're in the top 3. They start with Oakland and then Tennessee, both teams that haven't really been kind of carved up like a turkey on Thanksgiving when it comes to the ground game. So, again, you're missing out on those 2 games, but then you have Atlanta, Kansas City, and New Orleans and Denver. So a lot of favorable matchups when he does return to into the playing field.
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy, we had a viewer last night actually right on our Facebook wall, is Mike Malik. He tunes in every week, one of our biggest fans. He actually put a prediction up there that he thinks D'Angelo Williams is going to rush for 1,100 yards and about 10 or 11 touchdowns. What do you think of that one? He's right here, number 5 or 6 on the strength of schedule.
I don't know.
Can that guy do that with that crowded backfield there?
I don't know, because Jonathan Stewart just got that big contract. So if you're going to take carries away, you're going to take carries away inside the 50 as opposed to inside the 10, because they're going to give Jonathan Stewart the bulk of the carries in the red zone. So
and they got Tolbert there now too.
Yeah, so it's definitely a crowded backfield. But when you come look at it again, D'Angelo Williams is a first-round draft pick. Out of Memphis, he has had a pretty good career so far. And then when you look at it, the Panthers are kind of a pass first, rush second type team, but D'Angelo Williams out of the backfield can catch a lot of balls, and he's a very, very reliable running back when called.
Okay, so maybe he's ready for a bounce back too. Who the heck knows there in Carolina? Somebody's gonna need to step up here. And, the same kind of situation here in San Francisco. You got Frank Gore in another crowded backfield. You got Kendall Hunter. He's ready. He's busting out there. He's busting out of the seams, ready to make something happen there. And then they also signed Brandon Jacobs. And
they also have Michael James too in the 3rd round. They drafted him out of Oregon. So they have electrifying guys in the backfield. But when you talk about the San Francisco 49ers, you look, that they're going to run the ball first. But Jim Harbaugh also likes that play action pass. So that run can definitely set up the pass a little bit, but you don't know who's going to get the carries in San Francisco. I mean, Frank Gore is obviously the number 1 guy, but when it comes down to it, Kendall Hunter he's kind of the home run back in that backfield. And then Brandon Jacobs, I don't really see a need for him because they did draft LaMichael James, and LaMichael James and Kendall Hunter are kind of the same player if you think about it. But again, Frank Gore is a guy that you're seeing fly off the boards in the 4th, 5th, maybe 6th round. He would be a good player to pick up. I mean, he's always been a versatile back, and he's always been a guy that, come playoff, come championship, wins games for you. So you can't look out after that aspect of it.
Okay, let's move to the bottom of the list here. Who are some of the guys here on the bottom of the list that you see that maybe have some of these harder matchups here? One of the guys that jumped straight into my bullseye here is Steven Jackson down there at the bottom of the list of the tough matchups. And this is a guy that's just been, he's been a consistent fantasy producer, but not really the most exciting one.
Yeah, you're right. He always plays about 14 games a season. And he's a very tough running back. He'll play injured for you. Does not fumble that often. And he scores touchdowns, especially in this offense where they don't have dynamic players, at the wideout position or tight end position. So Sam Bradford's going to look for him to solidify, maybe be like a security blanket, just dump off, check down, because he does catch passes out of the backfield. He's very reliable in the hands, and he breaks tackles too. So if you're in a yardage league that gives you bonus points for getting 20+ yards, Steven Jackson would be a great player to get. But you also look at the strength of schedule. They play Detroit. He's got a great front 4. You have the Redskins. Washington's got a very revamped defense. They're playing a 3-4 this season. So I don't know about him, but then I look at the Arizona Cardinals, and I kind of think to myself, why would you ever draft Beanie Wells, and why would you ever draft Ryan Williams? A guy coming back from a pretty serious knee injury. So look to stay away from at least those guys. But when it comes to Steven Jackson, you know what you're going to get out of the guy.
And moving up, one last team here, I think maybe Ahmad Bradshaw's a guy that you could look to maybe fall down your draft boards there a little bit further. I mean, he's just, he's never really been that great of a fantasy running back, and I really want to get into this mock draft I did last weekend, Robbie. So let's go ahead and get into this. This is a Football Guys satellite. You can draft a team at RT Sports for $35. It's a pretty good deal. Just to give you, like, you can't really do those mock drafts. You want to do mock drafts on CBS Sportsline or one of those other sites, one of the free mock drafts. It doesn't really do any good because, yeah, you can do them and you'll get some practice, like going through the drill of drafting your players. But the problem is you don't really get a good, realistic representation, Robbie, of these drafts because the problem is that people draft the first 5 or 6 rounds and those put on auto draft and then the computer picks the rest of the picks. So number one, you can't keep up, and number two, it's all set on whatever scoring system that is. So the rest of the second and third, halves of those drafts end up being the exact same guys in every single draft you'd ever do. So you really need to have some money involved in these drafts to make them worthwhile, players that care, and there's actually real money on the line. So for $35 for your own mock draft, if you will, I think is a great way to go ahead and get into the leagues, find out what's going on and how people are thinking and how they're drafting.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I like looking at these too because I have a draft coming up. I haven't drafted any of my teams yet, so it's always good. It's always good to do a mock draft beforehand, like you said, Phil, because kind of gets you thinking a little bit on what guys are going to take or where players are going to go. So that's also a great kind of gauge if you're looking at a guy like, let's say, for instance, Andre Johnson, guy coming back from an injury, not really going in the first round. Maybe you can get him in the second round, but if you have a late second round pick, maybe he falls to you. So that could affect your draft a little bit. But and then you talk about a guy like Jamal Charles. Where is he going to end up? Is he going to go second round, third round? Then you look at the tight end position. Gronkowski and also Jimmy Graham. Excuse me. Those two guys too. You don't really know unless you're playing in a tight ends league where they kind of give you bonuses for catches. Those guys aren't going to fly off the board like you would think. So
and that's kind of how this league is structured. Let's go ahead and cover the scoring format because it's always important is to know the key rules of your league when you're drafting them. Okay, in this league for the satellite draft, you draft 1 quarterback, you're drafting 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, you have 2 flex positions, a tight end, a kicker, and a defense. So that's 10 starters. You're drafting a total of 20 players. So it's a pretty deep roster. So you pretty much need to know what you're doing to draft a team that's going 20 deep. Okay, now the key the rules are also about this for scoring about the same. You get 4 points for touchdowns for quarterbacks, 6 for receivers and tight ends and running backs. And the key difference this year, you get a point per reception for your receivers, but you get a 1.5 reception for your tight ends. So that definitely affects the draft strategy of people approaching this draft. Like there tends to be a lot more emphasis put on the tight end position than you'll see in any other draft that you guys are used to doing. So tight ends very highly drafted and coveted in this type of format. So that being said, let's go ahead and these are starting with the first draft position here. We have the team Fiercer. His team's name was Fiercer. FPC 7. This guy's in a lot of leagues. I was emailing him afterwards. He has something like 36 leagues that he's in. Luckily, about 2/3 of them are Draft Masters leagues, so he doesn't have to worry too much about management. But let's go get into his team here, Robbie. He's I drafted against this guy. Tell me what you see. He took LeSean McCoy number 1. How did he do from there?
I'm a little skeptical because I like the pick. I like LeSean McCoy. Good running back. Going to get you a lot of points, a lot of carries this season. A lot of catches out of the backfield too. That's always important in a PPR league as well. But definitely a lot of touchdowns. Then you look at the second round. I know it came back to him, and he got Jordy Nelson. Jordy Nelson's not a bad pickup at all. He's going to be looked upon.
Remember Larry Fitzgerald?
Well, you know what? Yeah, that. With the way that Aaron Rodgers threw the football last season, you have got to take a flyer on Jordy Nelson.
And Jennings potentially being hurt.
And Jennings has been out for most of the preseason, and it could affect his regular season status as well. So this is the main guy in the aerial assault for Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. So again, not a bad pick. And then you get Aaron Hernandez. This guy's also going to catch a lot of passes. Now he might get some taken away.
And some rushes.
Oh yeah, right. We saw that in the playoffs, but. I like this. I like this team. I like Vernon Davis. I like Brandon Lloyd. I mean, he knows that Tom Brady's going to throw the football, and he's got a lot of mouths to feed in New England, and he's going to distribute accordingly. And then he gets Phillip Rivers in the 7th round. I mean, a couple of the wide receivers are gimpy over in San Diego, but he still has Vincent Jackson and Antonio Gates.
That's a great 7th round pick.
That is coming from last year when Phillip Rivers was going 3rd and 4th round.
Yeah.
To get him in the 7th round is huge. But I don't like the Ryan Williams pick at 8. I really thought that he could have gotten a guy like maybe Titus Young from the Lions. And if you think about it, you think Titus Young, all right, Calvin Johnson's there, but he's the number 2 guy to Calvin Johnson. I like this guy a lot. I think that he's got He showed a lot his rookie season out of Boise State, and he's got another year under his belt. Really developed some chemistry last season with Matthew Stafford. So I looked at him, especially with that, not having a great run game like the Green Bay Packers. The Detroit Lions are going to be just as volatile in the running back position. So look for them to throw the ball a lot, and look for Titus Young to get a lot of catches.
Yeah, I mean, I just like to wrap this up by saying that he drafted really smartly. I mean, the only issue I really have is the second running back, for that. But you're gonna have a weakness in any one of these formats. You're drafting against good guys, and you can't have studs at every position. So Jonathan Stewart, the easy Carolina schedule, maybe that works out pretty good for him. I think his backups with Jennings and Vereen could be, and Dwyer's a pretty smart long shot. I mean, these are guys that can end up being starters here at the start of the season, actually.
Yeah, definitely. I like Michael Floyd in the 16th round, by the way. I think that's a hell of a pick.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. A rookie
16th
flyer like that,
16th round. This guy is gonna. He hasn't had a great preseason, but I like it.
All right, man. Let's move on to Team 2 here, Robbie. This guy started off his draft with Arian Foster. I mean, I'm sure that guy was thrilled to have Arian Foster. A little bit, by the way, a little interesting that he would take McCoy, number 1 pick overall, but in point per reception league, certainly a great pick. But as is Foster here, he gets him in round 2. I think anybody would be thrilled to get Arian Foster in round 2. How do you like the rest of his team here?
It's okay. It's decent at best. I wouldn't put a lot into it because look at the quarterbacks Ben Roethlisberger and Josh Freeman again. Yeah, Josh Freeman's going to throw the football a little bit, but he has no one to throw to. Roethlisberger has been injured, new offensive coordinator, so I don't know how they're going to do this season. But you look at Donald Brown, you look at Ben Tate, the running backs.
I like Foster and Matthews. I think those are 2 awesome running backs.
They have great running backs, and their backups are good too. But he really didn't fill any holes.
I mean, I love Fitzgerald. I think the rest of his receivers are
are not that good. So when you look at Danny Amendola, you look at who they could have gotten in front of him. I mean,
point reception league though. I mean, Amendola could be pretty good.
Yeah, that's true.
Big injury.
That's true. He could have gotten Pierre Garçon. He could have gotten Torrey Smith, but instead he went with Ben Tate overall. And do I see where he's coming from? Kind of, but again, decent draft.
I like his starters. I think he's going to really get hammered on bye weeks though. His starters are actually pretty awesome. I'd take those starters, except for I don't like his quarterback. But I am big on Freeman this year. I think his schedule will set up nice, and I think he's going to make a nice little rebound there, especially with Vincent Jackson down there to throw the ball. Let's move on to Team 3 here. This guy got Ray Rice. So as you predict, those top 3 running backs are going to go 1, 2, 3 in almost every draft you're in, unless you get some guys going crazy with the quarterbacks. Nobody was dumb enough to do that in this draft, as we'll get to here shortly. At least for quite some time there. But moving on to Team 3, this guy ends up with Ray Rice, Andre Johnson, Marshawn Lynch, and Michael Vick as your top 4. Not the greatest, but not bad.
Yeah,
injury issues maybe.
Well, I like Andre Johnson and Macklin and Titus Young. Those 3 guys, he has got great wide receivers, marginal tight ends with Brent Selleck and Kyle Rudolph. I think that Rudolph plays a little bit better than Selleck, and I see him starting most games over him. But I like the wide receiver position. But again, with Vick and Luck, you know what you're going to get in Michael Vick. If he stays healthy, he could really, really benefit, but kind of I think a great situation as his backup quarterback in Andrew Luck. So I like Team 3, but
yeah, he stole Luck for me too. I was looking to draft him in that round too. Right around that time, that was a bit of a buzzkill. But I agree with you on the rest of those guys. I think he's got some pretty good up-and-comers there with Young, and I think Macklin could be fantastic. He's got sort of the combo there with Vick and Macklin. So sure, let's roll with that. Lance Kendricks, a long shot, kind of sleeper tight end from last season. Moving on to Team 4. So after the top 3 running backs go, Robbie, the drafts will start deviating. I mean, could they get quarterback? Will they keep going running back, or will they just take a tight end, or can you take Megatron? So in this case, the 4th team, the Red Dragons, took Calvin Johnson, and their top 4 ended up being Julio Jones, and they took Trent Richardson in the 3rd, and then went tight end in the 4th. He waited a very long time to get his quarterback down there in round 9 with Robert Griffin.
You know what? I like this team a lot. I really think that Robert Griffin III is going to have a good season this year, and his backup's Carson Palmer, so if Griffin doesn't do well, he can always supplant him with Carson Palmer. But yeah, this team looks really good on paper. Trent Richardson in the 3rd round. You got Megatron, Julio Jones, who's going to have a breakout season. I think he'll be definitely a candidate for All-Pro in that position. I like Julio Jones a lot. And then Eric Decker is going to catch a lot of footballs from Peyton Manning this year if he can stay healthy. I know he has a concussion issue, but looking at Jermichael Finley too at the tight end, I like this team a lot. And if you come back to me in 15 more weeks and this guy's not in first place, then
I'll come back. I think he'll be mathematically out of it after 7 weeks. To be honest with you, I think he goes 0-7 to start the season. Griffin is going to struggle. Robbie, how many times do I tell you about how hard the Redskins' schedule is? This is not a good schedule for him to step in his rookie season and be successful. I mean, I've got the Redskins going 4-12. I know you think that's probably lowballing it a little bit. This guy's going to struggle. His running backs are about as bad as you could possibly imagine drafting. I don't think you could imagine giving somebody, even thinking it would be fair to give those guys that kind of a running back lineup on the. I mean, who are starters going to be on the opening weekend? I mean, Richardson, who may or may not play, probably will. Hillis, backup running back to Jamal Charles. Okay, maybe we'll get some vulture touchdowns. And then you have the whole debacle up there in Pittsburgh. And, you know, who the heck knows what's going to happen with that running back situation? Pittsburgh's a mess right now. So I hate his running backs. Yeah, he's got Megatron and Julio Jones, who I think is being way overdrafted. I think the rest of his team is quite frankly sucks. I mean, Austin and Britt won't make it through the season, and he got the wrong Steve Smith.
I like it, man. I think this is definitely a good.
He's got a good defense, though. I'll give him that. He's got two good defenses.
Two good defenses.
All right, man. Let's move on to Team 5. This guy started off his draft. He went back to the running backs. He got Chris Johnson, Jamal Charles to start off the first 2 rounds, and then he went Roddy White and Matt Ryan. So he's got the Falcons combo there. So maybe good, favorable schedule-wise. But did he reach on a quarterback, or is that a pretty good start?
I think whoever drafted this team is a donk. Oh, it was you that drafted.
You don't know who drafted this team. That's not labeled on this thing.
I'm just kidding.
It's possible, though.
I'm just kidding. No,
he did draft Santonio.
We always talk about staying away from the. Well, we always talk about staying away from the wide receiver quarterback tandem, unless you're last season's Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson in the first 5 weeks. But again, you really can't look that much into it. You dive in, you look at the running backs. Chris Johnson should have a bounce back season. He's had a fantastic preseason. Reggie Bush again. I'm not too sold on Reggie Bush, but that's just me.
He's a flex player.
VJax. I like Santonio Holmes. I like Hayward Bay. I love the Randy Moss pick in the 11th round. Tony Gonzalez doesn't really, do much for me, but hey,
You had to take somebody at that pick. That was basically all that was left.
Yeah, sure. But no, all in all, you look at this team, it's pretty solid. Definitely protects against injury. That's the first and foremost thing, because, guys are getting injured during the season. And if Matt Ryan doesn't step up, Joe Flacco hopefully does. But I believe Matt Ryan's going to be a really good fantasy quarterback this season.
Yeah, he should be. I think he will be too. Again, I wasn't planning on taking Matt Ryan. That wasn't really my strategy.
Oh, was you?
I took, Roddy White. We'll go and get into that right now. Might as well. We took Roddy White, thinking he was by far the best receiver on the board there. Fitzgerald just went. That really broke my heart. I wanted him, but I think that Roddy White is in a different category than A.J. Green, Greg Jennings, Brandon Marshall, Victor Cruz, Steve Smith, those guys this year, and even a guy like Hakeem Nicks. And I think Des Bryant, the drop-off is really huge after that. I was thrilled to get Matt Ryan in the 4th. I wasn't really planning on doing that. I was really hoping Stafford would fall, but that was really a pipe dream. That was never going to happen anyway. I didn't want Vic, and then after that, I really didn't want to get into that sort of that mediocre caliber of quarterback after that. Not mediocre, but like a Romo guy or a Peyton Manning or Ben Roethlisberger. I really didn't want to go with those guys, and I wasn't really thrilled with him, but I was left on the board there. So I went with Ryan. I might have even taken Bush with that pick, and then lost Ryan, and then still was able to get Bush in the 5th round. I've never been a huge Vincent Jackson fan, but I think in the 6th round, that's pretty good value, and he's going to a good situation down there in Tampa. Gonzalez, again, is best tight end on the board, so now I have 3 Falcons on my team. That definitely wasn't planning on doing that at all, despite their matchups. And Santonio Holmes, I didn't really like him, but he's still the top receiver there in the Jets. 8th round, what are you going to do? Hopefully I never have to start that guy. And then I got a flyer with Darius Haywood Bay. I like Hankerson here in Washington. And I've kind of got a couple handcuffs down there. Grabbed a kicker and a defense, both the Patriots. I think they'll be decent. I got San Diego. We said a good matchup the week. The Patriots are on bye. We got half the team's left in 3 minutes to go, Rob. We better burn fast, buddy. The next team here, he started off with Jimmy Graham, 1.5 points per reception. So he's going to build his team around that.
No, I definitely like that. I don't really like this team, though, in general, just because I look at the quarterbacks and Schaub and Locker and Bradford. I gave him about a C+. Jones, Drew, and Bradshaw are problems.
Receivers are good, though.
Decent. Des Bryant, again, you don't really know what Des Bryant's going to show up. Mike Wallace, contract issue, could be a holdout. Stevie Johnson, he's okay, but that's about it. That's all I have.
All right, then this rock star guy, he took, here's the first quarterback off the board in the 1st round. You knew somebody had to do it. Aaron Rodgers, overdrafting quarterback in the 1st round. I mean, you're going to pay the price dearly, and we'll get to that here in a second here. In the second round, he reaches for A.J. Peterson. I mean, you can't have that as your number one running back in this league this year. I mean, there's too many question marks surrounding him. Yeah, he may come back and giving you first-round draft production, but just a big risk. A.J. Green, I like it. Hakeem Nicks, can't argue with that. Michael Turner, Sean Green, really bad picks. Garcon for a third receiver. Yeah, that's pretty good. I don't know why you'd take another quarterback for a while after you have Rodgers. You're never going to play him, and then actually, I like some of these guys on his bench here. I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's actually not looking like that bad of a team. I think he's going to really struggle with his running back position. Let's move on to the Packers.
I kind of like this team. I like Eli Manning. I love Greg Jennings, even though he's going to be injured for a little bit. I think he'll probably miss the first 2 games. Love Cedric Benson. Love Roy Halou. I like Beanie Wells in the 8th round.
You always do.
And then, getting, I guess, Sidney Rice, Terrell Owens, those guys aren't going to put up that many points with Russell Wilson throwing the football.
I think Brady Gaga got off to a pretty good start here. He's got McFadden, Breeze, Marshall, and then Gore for a second running back. I think that's pretty solid. I love Dwayne Bowe. I think that's going to be a good pick this year. I don't like Robert Meacham at all. I don't like Kevin Smith. Hopefully he never has to play Peyton Manning. Michael Bush could be a good bye-week filler possibly with some vulture touchdowns. But the rest of the team, I'm not a real huge fan of any of these guys on this team at all the way down his draft board. I think Felix Jones, maybe that late is a pretty good value. That's about it. Go on to the turd.
These guys look pretty good. I like Matthew Stafford and DeMarco Murray. Did he reach for DeMarco Murray? Maybe in the first round. But I also like Victor Cruz and Deshaun Jackson, especially Deshaun Jackson, to step up this season.
All right, moving on to the Asinos. You got Matt Forte and Darren Sproles. Pretty solid way to start your draft, especially in PPR leagues. Really good start. Steve Smith. Yeah, he's going to be a stud. Now he's got the combo with Cam Newton and Steve Smith. So if they're able to repeat any of that performance there, this guy's going to be quick out of the gates here. Pettigrew, not a huge fan, but he's a decent tight end in that round. Antonio Brown, awesome. I totally love that pick. I think Reggie Wayne is undervalued this year and a good pick. And Jack Rogers, he got a good flyer, a long shot there, and to replace Michael Turner there in Atlanta.
I like Team 12. Tom Brady, you have Wes Welker combination a little bit. And then you have Demaryius Thomas, who's going to get a lot of throws his way with Peyton Manning. And then a sleeper, Coby Fleener in the 8th round. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, I knew you were talking about that. And you also you're a big fan of Tywan Jones. That's pretty well documented on the show as well. Anyway, that's about it. The draft, I think the winner will probably come from Team 5 there, Fantasy Sports Review, with Chris Johnson, Jamal Charles, Roddy White, and Matt Ryan leading him to fantasy football title land and the fresh $350 prize against all you guys awesome out there. It's great to break through this round. Hope that was very helpful to you. Robbie, good luck with your draft this weekend.
Thank you.
And Steve Mullen, thanks for directing the show as always. Good luck with your guys' drafts. Enjoy the rest of the preseason games. Take good notes. Pay attention when it happens. Thank you for tuning in to Fantasy Sports Review. We'll see you guys next week for the Week 1 NFL preview. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye, everybody.